Paul Dobson's an independent journalist. He's joining us live from Merida in western Venezuela. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. Do Venezuelans believe the government when it blames all these power outages on the opposition?
Well, as with most other spheres as well, the government discourse on the electrical crisis is believed by a very tiny percentage of the population. The credibility of the government explications when it comes to this and other areas, including the elections last month, is almost at zero amongst the Venezuelan population today.
Why is it then that the government, given the fact that very few people are actually going to believe the government when they say that it's down to opposition sabotage, why does the government decide to carry on with that particular line of argument?
Well, a more credible solution to the electrical crisis would invariably include elements which would be slightly shameful for the government. It would have to include an evaluation, for example, of the levels of corruption in the state-led industry. It would also have to look at industry mismanagement from the minister and the vice ministers in charge of the national grid. But it would also have to look at elements including the trade networks, the chains of supply when it comes to replacing electrical parts across the country. And in all of these areas, the government management of the state-run industry would be under siege and would come out looking quite red-faced, to be honest with you.
Given the amount of impact that this has across Venezuela, is there any indication that people are getting to the point where they're fed up with it and as a result may take some action? And if they did, what kind of action would they take?
I would argue that this point has already been crossed. We have seen strong reactions from the Venezuelan population over the last 5 to 6 years, and the electrical crisis is one of the key elements which has played a part in these actions. So here I'm talking about, for example, the over 7 million Venezuelans who have decided to leave the country, break up their families, and adapt to very severe conditions in many cases in other countries outside of Venezuela. We've also have to look at the results of last month's elections, which, while still not clear, would seem to indicate at this point that the vast majority of Venezuelans who opted to vote voted against the government and, again, the electrical crisis, the almost daily power outages in some localities play a big part of this.
You said that people had reached this point about 5 to 7 years ago, and they've been because of the recurring power outages that they're seeing, that they've been taken. It's being reflected in the elections. And nevertheless, of course, Nicolas Maduro is still in power. His government seems set to continue. It does sound, from what you're saying, that the only answer that people have is to leave the country.
This is certainly being considered by many, and will be of no surprise if we saw another large wave of emigration in the coming weeks, months, and potentially years due to the electoral situation here. A situation which could be very easily solved by the authorities by simply publishing the breakdown of results, which is the major demand from the Venezuelan civil society, both on the left of the government and on the right of the government. This would solve many of these issues and would allow many Venezuelans to start to re-sow trust in the authorities.
It's really interesting to get your thoughts on this. Paul Dobson's an independent journalist. He's been talking to us from western Venezuela. Thank you very much indeed, sir.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.